I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the will run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, so this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers to give up.
Politics and sinners, they all the same.
Got me stuck in this endless game. But I won't give up,
won't play the role.
Gotta do what's
best for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God. Neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching over me. Take my.
Good morning, 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 good morning. And I'm talking exposed. Minneapolis Police Department's cover up. $611 million stolen in DC's dirty game. There's a lot to talk about this morning. And before we get into all that, I want to get into independent music. And I got Louis Blaze, Life's a Game. And we'll be right back right after this.
Trying to get like always. I ain't stopping till we all pay. All my niggas wanna ball,
I'm trying to get it like always. Kanye with it, yeah, all day. I ain't stopping till we all pay. I'm on the road like all A. So my niggas wanna ball, life's a game and we all play. If I take a L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, light it up and watch it all blaze. Blaze. Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, I'm trying to get it like always. If I take an L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze.
I know my people rely on me, so I'ma make my people proud of me, yeah. So many people was doubting me, but my judge is the man looking down on me. Got no problems with the pen of prodigy, just a prophet fulfilling the prophecy. Ain't no probably, I'm my own properties, playing my life just like it was Monopoly. Hey, ooh, IWD on the move, we pulling strings like some shoes. You can continue to snooze, stay concentrated, call me Q, cause I'm the one with the juice. Always on my P's and Q's, love victory and hate to lose. My DNA is full of fuel, building up until I choose to set a fire in the room, then boom, light it up and watch them all blaze. Let them burn us out of all the flames, inspired to become like all the grace. Before I die, make the Hall of Fame. Trying to get it like always, all day, I want a ball, man. No designer jeans, desire finer things, and I won't stop until we all stray.
I'm trying to get it like always. Kanye with it, yeah, all day. I ain't stopping till we all pay. I'm on the road like all A. So my niggas wanna ball, life's a game and we all play. If I take a L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, light it up and watch it all blaze. Blaze. Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, I'm trying to get it like always. If I take an L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze.
such a hard day. My life is what you call pain. I just wanna smoke it all away. All the bad choices and the heartbreaks. School of hard knocks, I had all A's. Then I started skipping in the hallway. Wasn't in the class, I was bound to crash. Like a car driving down the wrong way. Had to get right before I got left. Up midnight and barely got rest. Working on a plan on how to make it out. Cause living in a struggle, such a hot mess. We too cold-hearted, broken, starving. Against the odds like 6 and 8. Did we go too far, end up facing charges? Give away our freedom till we 68. Pray we get some change like a wishing well. Every day I just wish us well. We in them chains trying to break them off, so we flee to heaven and get rid of hell. They want us all to play by the rules, but I'm Kaepernick to the NFL. Just a rebel, who can I settle? This life is a game, won't you get on my level? Blaze.
Trying to get it like always. Kanye with it, yeah, all day. I ain't stopping till y'all pay. I'm on the road like all A. So my nigga wanna ball A. Life's a game and we all play. If I take a L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, light it up and watch it all blaze.
Blaze, blaze.
Light it up and watch it all blaze. Yeah, I'm trying to get it like always. If I take an L, blow it in your face. Light it up and watch it all blaze.
That was Life's a Game, Louis Blaze. Like I said, I want to get into something this morning that I think, to be honest, is we got to revisit the past, right, a little bit to get people back involved, right? So we're going to revisit the murder of Lewis Allen. A lot of people maybe don't remember this situation, maybe never heard about it. It's time to get into it, right? So I want to play Revisiting the Death. I shouldn't even say the death because it was actually a murder of Lewis Allen. So on the night of January 31st, 1964, just before he was set to leave for Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Lewis Allen was ambushed outside of his home in Liberty, Mississippi. And that's where the story begins. But there's so much more to it. And actually, what was the result of that, of Lewis Allen. So with that being said, we're going to get into the documentary, and I'm going to be quiet, and let's get into the murder of Lewis Allen.
60 Minutes Rewind.
5 years ago, the FBI announced that it was reopening more than 100 unsolved murder cases from the civil rights era of the 1950s and 60s. The goal of the Cold Case Initiative was to try and mete out justice in what seemed to be racially motivated killings that were never prosecuted. Not many 50-year-old cold cases ever get solved. Memories fade, evidence is lost, witnesses and suspects die or disappear. But that's not the case in the death of Lewis Allen, a mostly forgotten but historically significant murder that helped bring thousands of white college students to Mississippi in the Freedom Summer of 1964. The murder is still unsolved, but the case has never quite gone away because the chief suspect is very much alive and walking the streets of a town called Liberty. Liberty, Mississippi is a small rural logging town not far from the Louisiana border. The FBI believes that some people here have been keeping a dark secret for nearly 50 years from one of the ugliest periods in the state's history.
You will not be allowed to proceed past this point today.
It was a time when civil rights activists were beaten and arrested, when state and local politics were controlled by all-white citizens' councils, and when people like Lewis Allen were murdered in cold blood without redress.
You keep a photo of Lewis Allen on your desk?
I do.
Why?
The case bothers me. I feel like we failed, and not just the FBI, but law enforcement.
Cynthia Diedel is a 15-year veteran of the FBI's Civil Rights Division and until a few weeks ago was in charge of the Cold Case Initiative. Of the 100 unsolved, racially motivated murders she's been charged with investigating, none has been more promising or frustrating than Lewis Allen's.
Somebody knows something. Some husband came home with bloody clothing. Someone got drunk in a bar and said what he was doing last night. Someone knows something.
But in the early 1960s, people in and around Liberty knew to keep their mouths shut. A violent chapter of the Ku Klux Klan used cross burnings, abductions, and murder to enforce the doctrine of white supremacy and to intimidate the black population, most of which lived in shacks with no electricity or plumbing and were not allowed to vote. Civil rights leaders like Robert Moses, who came south to help them register, were frequently the target of violence.
Liberty was not a place that I liked to go.
Why?
Because it was a place where you weren't safe if you were doing voter registration work.
It was in Liberty that Moses met Lewis Allen, a rough-hewn World War II veteran who walked proud and was not afraid to stand up for himself. He ran a small timber business, was one of the few blacks in Liberty to own his own land, and always wore a hat, which he considered a sign of self-respect. He was not the type to seek out trouble. Robert Moses says it found him.
He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He saw something that happened, and he was deeply disturbed and affected by that, and so he had a basic life decision to make.
On September 25, 1961, Allen was walking past this old cotton gin when he saw something that likely got him killed. Lewis Allen witnessed a powerful state legislator by the name of E.H. Hurst shoot and kill an unarmed black man named Herbert Lee. Allen told his friends and family that he and other eyewitnesses had been pressured into lying about the shooting, into saying that it was self-defense. Later, Allen decided that he needed to tell the truth. One of the people Lewis Allen told it to was Julian Bond, who is trying to register black voters in Mississippi for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He would later become a legendary civil rights leader.
This was not a self-defense action by the state representative. This was out-and-out murder. That's all it was. But Lewis Allen agreed to lie about that.
Why do you think he lied?
He lied because he was in fear of his life. If he had implicated a powerful white man in a murder of a black man, that he was risking his life.
Did you encourage him to tell the truth?
I tried to encourage him to tell the truth, but, it was like saying, why don't you volunteer to be killed?
But Allen's wife would later testify that his conscience was clipping him, and he decided to tell FBI agents and the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights what really happened at the cotton gin. This document from FBI files says Allen changed his story and expressed fear that he might be killed. He asked for protection, but none was provided. Almost immediately, word began circulating in Liberty that Lewis Allen was prepared to change his testimony.
He was threatened as a result of the fact that he was going to change his statement, and that he did change his statement.
And the FBI was notified of those threats?
Yes.
Did the FBI do anything?
Yes, we referred that to local law enforcement authorities.
It's certainly possible to conclude the local law enforcement people were the ones behind the threats.
There is a theory out there that speaks to that, yes.
In fact, it's been the prevailing theory for some time, although the FBI cannot officially confirm it. There is a 1961 reference in the FBI file to a report that Allen was to be killed and the local sheriff was involved in the plot to kill him. And we found this 1962 letter from Robert Moses to Assistant Attorney General John Doerr alleging the same thing. They're after him in Emmett County, it says, and makes reference to a plot by the sheriff and 7 other men.
He was afraid of the sheriff's department.
I think he was, yes.
And I think he was afraid of the Klan, although they seem to be sort of the same thing in Liberty at this time.
I'm not sure I can say that.
Julian Bond was less circumspect.
The law enforcement, you suspected they were members. If you wanted to be a mayor, a city councilman, a county commissioner, the sheriff, if you wanted to be in the legislature, you had to have some connection with the Klan.
And in the Emmett County Sheriff's Department, the person with the best connection was Deputy Sheriff Daniel Jones. His father was the exalted Cyclops of the local Klan, and Jones himself, according to this FBI document we found, was suspected of being a Klan member. Jones, who's alive and still resides in Liberty, was recently visited by FBI agents who wanted him to take a lie detector test.
What was he like?
Well, mean.
Hank Allen was 17 years old when his father was killed, and he remembers Daniel Jones as his main tormentor. He says he watched Jones harass and repeatedly arrest his father on trumped-up charges, and one night beat him outside their home.
And he had handcuffed him, told him he was under arrest. So Dad asked for his hat. He told Dad, no, you can't go get your hat. Daddy said, well, that my son is on the porch. Can he bring me my hat? He drove back. He took a flashlight, and he struck my dad and broke his jawbone, handcuffed.
When he got out of jail, Lewis Allen did something that was unheard of for a black man in Mississippi. He went to the FBI and lodged a complaint against Deputy Sheriff Jones and testified before a federal grand jury. The case was thrown out, and the situation in Liberty continued to deteriorate.
They stopped selling Daddy gas in the town. They stopped buying his logs. They just more or less just tried to blackball him.
It got to the point, the harassment and just him not being able to survive in Liberty, that he decided to leave and to go work in another state. And it's the night before he is due to leave that he is killed.
Lewis Allen was ambushed here on a cold night in January 1964 after getting out of his truck to open the cattle gate that led to his property. His son Hank was the one who found him.
I didn't know why he would park the truck in the middle of the driveway and leave it like that. And I climbed up in the truck. The headlights was real dim. And when I went to step down out the truck, I stepped on something. And that's when I stepped on my daddy's hand. He was lying up under the truck.
He was killed with 2 blasts of deer shot to the head. The investigating officer was none other than the newly elected sheriff, Daniel Jones, who Hank said made it clear to the family why his father had been murdered.
He told my mom that if Lewis had just shut his mouth, that he wouldn't be laying there on the ground. He wouldn't be dead.
You think Sheriff Jones did it?
Yes, indeed, by all means. If he didn't do it, he was the entrepreneur of it.
Jones told the newspapers he was unable to find a single clue.
How would you characterize the investigation that Sheriff Jones conducted?
He did not develop any fingerprints, any physical evidence, and he never developed any suspects.
Not a great investigation.
Probably could have done more.
In fact, it's not clear that anyone investigated Lewis Allen's murder until 1994, when Plater Robinson, an historian at the Southern Institute at Tulane University, began digging into it.
From day one in Liberty, people told me that Daniel Jones and a colored man killed Lewis Allen.
Robinson has spent 17 years combing through archives and tracking down people to interview. One of them was an elderly preacher named Alfred Knox. Knox told Robinson in a 1998 tape-recorded conversation that his son-in-law, Archie Weatherspoon, was with Sheriff Daniel Jones when Allen was murdered.
My son-in-law went with him.
To kill Lewis Allen?
To kill Lewis Allen. He didn't know where he was going until he got in the car. And he said, would you pull the trigger? Would you shoot him? I said, no, I ain't gonna do it. That's what my son-in-law said, I ain't gonna shoot him. You come out here to kill him, you kill him. So, he killed him.
Both Knox and his son-in-law took their stories to the grave, but Plater Robinson says the answer to who killed Lewis Allen can still be found in Liberty.
A lot of people are dead, but there's still a number of significant people still alive.
Like who, besides Sheriff Jones?
Well, Charles Ravencraft, he lives down the road. He's quite healthy.
We found Charles Ravencraft at the Liberty drugstore, presiding over a coffee clutch of old-timers, some of whom were around when Lewis Allen was murdered.
People in this area, it just don't do much talking.
For years, Ravencraft was Sergeant-at-Arms of the Mississippi legislature, and at the time of Lewis Allen's murder, Vice President of the Americans for the Preservation of the White Race in Liberty, a front group for the Ku Klux Klan.
Was it around, Charles?
What is that?
Klan.
Sure, in here.
Weren't you guys in it?
It wasn't about a Klan if you don't tell everybody what your business was.
Right.
Ravencraft indicated that he hadn't lost much sleep over Lewis Allen's murder.
Wow.
And told us he had no idea who killed him.
No, I don't. He lived a lot longer than I thought he'd lived. The kind of fellow he was, a little bit overbearing. I don't think his civil rights had anything to do with it.
Winborne Sullivan wasn't around when Lewis Allen was killed, but he ran the Liberty drugstore for 36 years.
I think there are people who know what happened and who did it, but they're not willing to talk about it, and they won't talk about it. You'll never find out.
They told us they don't see much of former Sheriff Daniel Jones these days. He spends most of his time on his property just off the state highway. We decided to approach him with our cameras concealed, on the off chance he might give something up. After waiting for a half an hour on the porch, he rolled up in an all-terrain vehicle with his wife. My name's Steve Croft. How you doing?
Pleased to meet y'all.
We're from 60 Minutes in New York. We're down here working on a story on an old case of yours and was wondering if you'd have some time to talk to us about it.
No, sir, I don't believe so.
You don't think so?
No, sir.
The Lewis Allen case?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He was polite and cordial, said he didn't want to talk, but he kept on talking. There was some bad blood between you and Lewis, right?
It was not no bad blood between them. Apparently, I'm talking more than I need to, but the truth sometimes has a way of slipping out if you try to keep it covered up.
Right. Were you in the Klan?
I won't answer that.
Right, I bet you that. See, that's crazy as hell.
Jones confirmed that the FBI had already been there asking some of the same questions.
I told you I don't care to discuss it anymore, and you just keep coming to your educated approach.
No, it's not my educated approach. Look, you haven't told me to get off your property. Just ask me one last question.
Okay, be sure it's the last one.
Can you look me in the eye and say you weren't involved in it?
No, sir, I wasn't involved in it.
Well, you know, Sheriff, you could clear this up with a lie detector test.
Well, it ain't gonna get cleared up.
The theory that Sheriff Jones killed Lewis Allen has been in the public domain for quite some time. The FBI would be remiss in our duties if we did not pursue that theory.
And it's still just a theory, a circumstantial case based on motive, suspicions, hearsay, and the words of dead people. There's no forensic evidence, no murder weapon, no eyewitnesses, and only one FBI agent working the case part-time.
My name is Cynthia Deedle.
At a town hall meeting in nearby Baton Rouge, Deedle tried to shake out some new leads and enlist journalists, activists, and students to help the FBI solve the murder. But there were some in the audience who still mistrust the FBI and think the Cold Case Initiative is little more than public relations.
There's been nothing did. There's been not one arrest. There's been all kind of investigations made. And I hate to say things like this because the FBI is the only help I got.
Should the FBI be doing more?
Of course they should be doing more. You know, thank God for these people who are doing it. But we can't turn law enforcement over to journalists. We can't turn it over to academics. We can't depend on some guy at Tulane to tell us who's killing people in Mississippi. Come on.
Why are you relying on reporters and professors and people in the town?
Who are not in the FBI.
This is the most powerful law enforcement agency in the country. You have subpoena power.
We do.
Right.
We have resources that we could bring to bear on any case.
Why don't you bring them?
They have been, but I've learned in these cases that a witness, a family member, may be more comfortable talking to you than she would be talking to me.
Right.
For Hank Allen, the time to solve his father's killing was 47 years ago. He believes the people who know what happened, black and white, would rather forget it now, and that the wall of silence and the passage of time have granted immunity to those he thinks are responsible.
Here's a guy goes on living his normal life, enjoying life, but they feel as though we're doing something wrong by saying something about the murder. In other words, you should be quiet about that. That was in the past. Well, it's still in my present.
Right.
And in my future. I have to look at this every day.
You know, he brings up a very good point of, like, they always want us to forget the past. Like, but how are we supposed to forget it when y'all won't confront it? How are we supposed to forget about something y'all won't confront? You know, that's the same thing that I feel like that's going on in Minnesota when it comes to our, you know, all this wasting and fraud. And I'm going to talk about that today as well, too. You know, we're supposed to go to these agencies, you know, like law enforcement or, you know, the FBI and expect for these people, you know, even like with CPS, we always expect for them to do the right thing. But there's such a line between right and wrong. It's so thin. And, you know, that's the one crazy part of it that I'll never understand is that people be so selfish that as long as that they're okay, they don't care about the next man. They don't care about the next person unless it comes to their door. But see, here's the thing of it is, if a lot of people were preventing these things, we wouldn't get there. We wouldn't, that's the one crazy part. What I don't understand is, like today, there's an election going on. And in my eyes, an important one, a very important election, in 40B. And I'm going to talk about that a little later too, because that is important. Are we in a stalemate in Minnesota? Are we in where we were in a trifecta where they were just cramming it down, right? That's why we see all this waste, this fraud. And this is the one crazy part that I'll never understand, right? Is why with the trifecta, a Democratic trifecta, we're seeing stories like this. MPDs missing use of force data. What are they hiding? So I want people to also as well, when you go vote, think about, that's the one crazy part of it that I'll never understand is like, you people always vote for, it's not always about policies, it's about popularity. And I really do believe that we would be further as a community or a neighborhood, whatever you want to call us, right? Whatever you want to call, because I don't honestly believe there is a middle class anymore. That's way been gone because, home ownership used to be in sight, and I know there's programs out here that they think that they're making it actually easier. Well, I will tell you this is that you're not. Because it's still easier to buy a raggedy ass car than to buy a foundation, to buy somewhere that you can start your forever, right? Your American dream. So they don't, in my eyes, they don't want people to have that American dream. They don't want people to have that, to feel like that they're that certain stature, that they're that certain stakeholder, because then we can make a difference. So with that being said, man, I want to get into MPD wipes key information from unlined use of force records.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Dorn.
And I'm Lindsay Brown. We're starting with a story you're seeing first on 5. The Minneapolis Police Department has changed how much it shares publicly when collecting use of force records.
In this age of court-ordered police reform, independent analysts tell our Renee Cooper the update clouds transparency and MPD's data can't be trusted as reliable.
They're making it as difficult as possible through the kind of false guise of transparency.
Sam Gould and statistics professor Claire Kelling,
it's about transparency, it's about access,
has spent a couple of years taking MPD's lengthy use of force list and putting it into context.
First of all, it's big.
They've mapped out where force incidents are concentrated and highlighted things like how often the initial problem was reported by 911 or a patrol officer.
To understand where are police being summoned versus where are they patrolling and surveilling.
And what we've seen predominantly is that these are officer-initiated incidents.
That doesn't hold for all use of force incidents, but when it is a suspicious person listed as the problem, then most of them definitely were not initiated by a 911 call.
But that work got flipped on its head when MPD changed how much information they share publicly online about use of force incidents.
If we can't count on the consistency or the reliability of this so-called open government transparent data, then we can't trust it.
Things like whether force followed a 911 call were wiped away on the new online dashboard. MPD also stopped sharing whether someone resisted the officer and if they were injured.
You basically just have kind of a blanket story of police doing their job.
MPD says they made these changes because their technology was producing incorrect data.
It wasn't reliable.
Chief Brian O'Hara says updates to the newer site will continue to comply with court-mandated reforms. And part of that is adding back in a list of injuries resulting from force.
That's in progress, and hopefully we'll have that completed and available online very soon.
To me, just as a member of the public, seems like context that could really help the public understand what happened in these moments. Whether they're required in the settlement agreement or not, why remove it?
I don't think there was any intention on anyone's part to do anything except do what MDHR and the court was addressing us to do. And we can absolutely look at making more information available if that's something that people actually want. But the heaviest lift now is figuring out how do we get the technology in place to capture all of the things that we need to capture.
Now, the chief says when those incidents happen where officers use force, MPD is actually collecting more detail than ever, even though they're currently publishing less. Now, that additional detail is still considered public information, meaning you can request a copy, but it can take months to get a response. I also reached out to the independent monitor overseeing court-ordered reforms at MPD. The president of that organization, Effective Law Enforcement for All, tells me they cannot comment on this issue. And guys, I also got a link MPD provided where anyone can provide comment and feedback on this and other ongoing reforms. That and much more of this story is over on KSTP.com.
Thanks for letting us know.
Seems like the chief is open to sharing more, though. Do you get that impression?
I do. It sounds like a technology issue, but again, it's a little unclear at the end of the day what all is going to be added back into the dashboard, as you know, some of the stuff that was removed isn't required to be there.
Okay.
Thank you, Renee.
I'm gonna tell you like this. I don't believe that Minneapolis police is actually making a change. I think they're making it, you know, when it comes to we see it in our legislator that they're making it easier for, you know, some people will say, you know, I see these gun laws, right? And I see these, you know, stand your ground. But then I think about it like, what community does it hurt? You know, if they put more resources into getting rid of the fraud and the waste, I don't believe we need to crack down on our court systems. I don't believe that we need to crack down on our judicial. I think what we need to crack down on is the fraud and waste that is going on in our communities, because there's millions and billions. I won't even, you know what? Fuck that. I won't even say millions, billions of dollars that come into the community every year. Every year. And what changes? In my eyes, I honestly don't believe anything, because it's 2025 and we're still having the same discussions that we were having in 2020 when it came to homelessness, when it came to gun violence, when it came to drugs. And all those things have just gotten worse. And we're still having these conversations. Well, you can't smoke fentanyl. But then we're saying, whoa, overdoses at an all-time high. Well, if they're not using needles per se, and you're just finding tinfoil or, you know, lighters up the yin yang, once you think that they're smoking it. And once you think that they're smoking it, you know, it's like we don't ever look at the bigger picture. We always look at a smaller vision, right? We always look at the smaller vision. And that's where I will never understand, right? Is why do we as individuals look at not so much the bigger picture, but we look at no, we don't look at the whole. I will say this: we don't look at the whole map, right? We just look at the parts that we think that affect us and affect us only. And that's not. It shouldn't be like that, you know. I just don't get it, right? I really don't, because there's like so much going on. There's like so much going on, especially when it comes to, because these next things I'm going to talk about, I'm going to take the rest of the time and I'm going to talk about these two things are, you know, this government waste. Yesterday, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, it was a one-sided conversation. And it's like,
don't look at it that way, because these are things that, in my eyes, that right, I agree, it was performative. You know what I'm saying? And to even go back to that, to get rid of the consent decree, right? They said they were all for it, but then they said they don't need it. You know, that made me look at it like, hey, that means you don't want to take that extra mile of prevention to make sure that it doesn't happen again, because you already know that it's going to happen again and you're going to be scrutinized. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they had something I was watching this morning. MPD put out a video about George Floyd Square, 30th in Chicago. And it's so, here's my thing about it. You don't really, I'll say you hear from some community members, but you mostly hear from the business community. And we got a lot of questions. And especially if the city's backing them, because there's a lawsuit right now. People should really be looking at this lawsuit that is for $30 million, but yet they just bought it was over like $33 million property over in South Minneapolis. So, there's a lot of funny shit going on, and people need to ask questions. They need to ask what's going on. And I think a way that we can get to a bottom of it is today in this election in 40B. I think this is a way that in Shoreview and Roseville, this is a way for voters to make their voices heard, and we can get rid of this government waste. That's the one thing that I keep on hearing is, even when it comes down to this waste and fraud, and we look at these 990 forms, they're not itemized. So a person can say that they spent $70,000 on a work car, but yet they only spent maybe $5,000-6,000 on a work car, and then spent the rest on their own vehicle. Because we've seen it. That's the one crazy thing that, people are like, well, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. There's a lot of people that are scared to say something, but it happens. It happens. People have bought houses. That's the one crazy part is, Bill Glenn said something yesterday when he was giving his presentation to the I wish I could watch the whole thing. It's almost 2 hours long, so I ain't gonna bore you with it. But he said a lot of people will say, well, he's just a Republican and he's a conservative, and don't look at it like that. Why we always got to bring up politics? That's what I will never understand, is like, why do we always have to talk about, the Urban League? That's what it was. It was the Urban League, Twin Cities. Yeah. So to be at that is just crazy, because I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't anymore. And to be honest, I don't even know if I want to, because people will break it down and be like, well, since you don't agree, you're a Republican, or you're a liberal, or you just, man, listen, man, I want better. I don't got to be nothing. You know what I'm saying? I don't got to be nothing. All I want to do is better for my community. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care about being a revolutionary. I don't care about being a militant. I don't care about none of that. All I care about is bettering my community, making sure that the next generation under me that I leave behind is better than what it is now and what we have seen. That's all I care about. And if you're not down for that, I don't even fuck you. I'm gonna be honest. Fuck you.
Minnesota taxpayers got ripped off to the tune of $600 million over the last 5 years.
That sobering message was delivered to state lawmakers today. Most of the government scams happen in programs that help the most vulnerable people in our communities.
Jay Coles breaks down the fraud and what's being done to stop it. Jay?
Kevin, lawmakers were told the fraud is sophisticated, well-planned, and sometimes months in advance. One conservative researcher says some of the fraud crosses different state agencies, and the criminals operate the scams similar to a business model. Back in December, I asked outgoing U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Andrew Lugar, this question.
Does Minnesota have a serious problem with fraud?
Yes, I think there needs to be a lot more done, and people need to have serious conversations about getting to the root of this and stopping it before it happens.
And part of that conversation took place Monday before the House Fraud Committee. Lawmakers heard government fraud is fleecing Minnesota taxpayers at a staggering pace since 2019.
$611 million. So $611 million is the total of, and I have 27 incidents that I've cataloged here.
And the largest is the $250 million scam by the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. Bill Glahn with the Center of the American Experiment says that amount is probably higher because 2 other nonprofits were also kicked out of the child nutrition program.
I think the total number for the food fraud probably is double that, around 500 million.
In recent weeks, I did not find fraud,
Niggas don't wanna have
but I did find
combos.
some child daycare centers were reimbursed nearly $20 million despite having serious safety violations over several years, which led to oversight questions in the Child Care Assistance Program known as CCAP.
When we had the conversation here about CCAP, we asked them specifically about how much have you recovered, and they were very proud to say they had $2.4 million since 2020.
Glahn says oversight problems in CCAP contributed to an estimated fraud of $100 million over the past decade.
If I leave one message here behind this morning is the key mission should be to stop the money going out the door to begin with.
Right.
Glahn did tell lawmakers he likes the idea of creating an inspector general for all of state government. There are proposals at the Capitol to create an independent office with the power to investigate every state agency, but those bills have not yet been voted on. Lindsay?
All right, so concerned.
So I'm going to say it like this. I know a lot of people will look at it and be like, oh, you're just pocket watching. I'm going to say it like this, right? And I don't know if Miss Robbins will ever get back to my email. You know what I'm saying? But I will say it like this. When it really comes down to this GOP, this fraud and waste committee, they don't want the answers. They don't want the truth. They don't want to be transparent. Because I will tell you like this, right? There's a lot of waste in Minnesota that goes unchecked, right? You know, and I was listening to Bill Glahn yesterday, and I will say this, is that I agree with a lot that he said. There should be no way when you look at these salaries of these nonprofits that the government, and the only reason why you're open is because of the government grants, is because of these city entities and these NGOs and these you know, taxpayer dollars. So why did you feel the need to pay yourself a 6-figure salary for doing nothing? Because we're not seeing any change in the streets. We're seeing talking points. That's what I don't understand, is how are we able to look at this, what's going on in Minnesota when it comes to our nonprofits, and by looking at these 990 forms, is that a lot of them are like over 85% are ran because of state funding, our city, our county. But yet, when you look at their salaries, there are companies that get paid 6-figure salaries. Even when it comes to the churches. Look at that. That's what the one crazy thing, right? Is I will say this, is that a lot of things that were coming up, especially yesterday, is that a lot of these nonprofits were running it like a criminal enterprise. They ran it like a street organization. So why don't we talk about that link between gangs and nonprofits in Minneapolis? Not even just in Minneapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, Rochester, Minnesota, Akron, Ohio, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New York. You can't talk about gangs in your communities without talking about police and state legislators. You can't. You can't. You can't. You literally can't talk about that. You can't talk about guns in our communities in the 80s without talking about Minneapolis Police Department, or the FBI, or the CIA. So again, who do you go to for help when the help is actually part of the problem. And I get where those people were saying, earlier when they were talking about Lewis Allen. The guy was like, well, how do you go? You go to the FBI, but they could be involved in covering up the case. So why wouldn't you trust like journalists, independent journalists? And that's the one thing that I took from Bill Glenn. Yes, I won't say that he's independent, and yes, he probably is a Republican, and it was more about his views and all that. But a lot of it was uncovered, and we got to make them. That's what you're right. And I think that's been exposed. Even when you look at the government and in the movie industry, they have a whole department on the budget in Hollywood. For what? So they can program and indoctrinate people. That's what's crazy to me is like, what do I seen these, how many people did I see in Brooklyn Center last night? 1, 2, 3, like 6. Come on, we're so split. We're so divided that when it comes to, because I'll tell you right now that I'm kind of pissed. I'm kind of frustrated because I will tell you like this is that what Dan, the city council member, did last night in Brooklyn Center pisses me off. But then I look at Lorianne Moore. I can't believe this bitch got in. What the fuck was I? Maybe I don't know when the fuck she got in. Like how did y'all let Lori get in? Like y'all didn't want Mayor Elliott in there so bad. You didn't want Mayor Elliott in there so bad. But how you let Lorianne Moore? Y'all united to get Lorianne Moore? Why don't y'all unite to get Dan and Lori out? Why don't you unite to get them out? Because I will tell you like this, everything that we have fought for since 2020 is going to be gone. Right. No, and that's another thing you got to look at. Even it wasn't even the way that flight time. You got to go back all the way to Terry Jam and Terry Lewis. Even when it came to My Saturday Love, Alexander O'Neal. There's a lot of connections that people don't want to discuss. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to talk about. And I was going through your Spike Moss, right? Yeah, you can. They all have, most of these superstars. That's the one crazy thing. I look at Bobby, right, and I'm like, damn, what did he do? And then I understand it because he's got nobody really wants to talk about the time when he was a crack kid, when he was stealing from Target, him and Nona, right? And I'm not on here to be talking disrespectful, but I'm just on here to tell you the truth. They don't like to bring that shit up. But then when you see all these, I messaged somebody and I sent them like a bunch of things that were, he was employed. He worked for Hubert Humphrey. We got to start talking about these connections, man, because I will tell you right now, what's is crazy is you put in some of these nonprofits and then I've been on the Data Republican and then there's another one that it shows you all this data and then the connections and like politicians. And it's like, damn, we needed something like this to make us pay attention, to give us the truth when these people won't even tell y'all the truth. And then people are so stuck in their head. This is what the crazy part of it is, right? What I don't understand is everybody's so against AI. There's so many people against it. But how are we going to have AI-powered restaurants or AI-powered schools that the teachers are going to be artificial intelligence? You're going to have automation. You're going to have robots policing. You already got taxis where ain't no driver up in the cities. Like, come on. How long is it going to be? Planes dropping out of the skies? Like candy. I'm not saying that it's not safe to fly, but they are coming down a whole lot more than they used to. A whole lot more than they used to. A whole lot more. You know, I will. And then even these car accidents out here. And it's like, because people don't want to take the time. Everybody is in such a rush. A rush. Why? Why? It's still going to be there. You know, that's the one crazy thing. The speed limit is on most highways in Minnesota is between like 60 and 70. Most niggas don't even go that. They go above that. And I get it. It does get boring when you go on 52, right? It's only, what, 65 miles per hour, and you see the same old shit over and over and over again. And you're like, God damn. There ain't enough weed in the world. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many blunts I didn't smoke from Rochester to Minneapolis on 52. Because it's so fucking boring. You know, I remember back in we were coming back. We used to come back from the cities to Rochester, and there's most people will understand if you're an adult. I'll say in your 30s, you'll remember that there used to be a light in Cannon Falls. There was a light, stopped all the traffic. There was 2 sets, and I remember my brother, man, and he got a speeding ticket one time, right? And he was going way over the speed limit, Right. I agree with you, Ben. I agree with you. Right. That we need it now. Nope. I agree with you. Society teaches you that you need it now and not to take your time. I agree with that. Because we got so far away from patience, from people having patience. Like, listen, slow down. Because Rome wasn't built overnight. I'm going to tell you like this. Back in 2021, when me and Marcus were doing this shit, I wanted everything overnight. I used to get mad, and then I understood why a lot of people didn't like me, right? Because I was like, I'd get mad. Even the shit that's happening today and people weren't paying attention, right? Because we could have stopped it if we united and we came together. We could have stopped this. Well, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be 100% honest, right? When there's enough individuals throughout Minnesota, throughout the world, throughout America, that if we united, we could overcome this sham government. We could overcome this. We could have real conversations about justice, about reparations. But I will tell you like this: you have this, the fuck is it, Tariq? You have the ADOS. You know what I'm saying? Do these people speak for us? Because I will tell you right now, neither of them niggas speak for me. Neither speak for me. You know what I'm saying? Because when I try to have conversations, I get blocked. And Yvette's got me blocked. Because they don't want to hear the truth. The same thing with Melina Abdullah. They don't never want to hear the truth. You know, I'm supposed to be, Ben Crump made a tweet, I believe, about the BLM, Black Lives Matter, being tore down in DC. And it's like, come on, man, I knew that shit was going to happen. Now you want to get in an uproar when they're actually doing it. But when it came down to we could prevent it, y'all ain't nowhere in sight. You're nowhere in sight. That's why I'm going to tell you that I'm anxious as hell for this election today, because, you know, a lot of Republicans think, well, he got 30% in the last election versus Curtis Johnson. And yes, there is a lot of things going on, but is that enough? Is that enough to overturn an election? And I play with the numbers over and over. I'm going to be honest. It'll be a miracle for Paul to win. This will be a political. Everybody thought Trump was a big ass win. I'm gonna tell you right now, if this was enough to flip 40B from blue to red, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked, because I'm gonna tell you right now that Curtis Johnson doubled the votes that Paul Wickstrom had. So if Paul beats the guy, even though he comes online and says some weird ass shit, I don't believe that's enough. I still don't. You know, even though I looked at the numbers this morning, there was 28,000 registered voters. He needs more than he needs a lot. It's not Minneapolis where, you know, in Ward 4 or 5 where you only Ward 4, you don't even need 1,700 votes to win. They would want you to, but you don't need it. Just like in Ward 5, they want you to have so many votes. Because I will tell you like this, man, there's some weird shit coming up when it comes to, you know, we got the ranked choice voting in Minneapolis. We have, you know, other things. And I think people just need to pay attention. It's up for your own perception. It's up for your own perspective. But I will tell you right now that if you can get on here and have a conversation and look me in the face and be like, hey, nonprofits are good. And yes, I understand that they're getting $1 million or $2 million from the state every year allotted. And then you look at their it's over 60% going to employees, you know, for administration cost, and then you got your occupancy, you have your travel, and then I'm looking at all that and I'm like, wait, what actually goes to the ground if you get let's say $3 million a year, and then almost 900,000 is going to keep a nonprofit? So how is that even possible? How is that even possible? Because that's why can't we call that a business? That's how because literally, like, anything that makes people feel like they're bettering as like a social service or they're doing something for the community, they know that being in Minnesota, you know, honestly, it's not just Minnesota, it's everywhere. Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, especially Milwaukee. God damn, even Atlanta. You know, that's the one crazy thing is, you know, when I watched the Lewis Allen story, and I was like, damn, we talk about Emmett Till and all that shit, but we never want to talk about the things that matter. You know what I'm saying? That matter. Because as much as we talked about Emmett, we could have got Emmett some type of justice. The much that we talk about George or Malcolm, we can force these people to give us the paperwork, these so-called files, because they want to talk about CONTELPRO all the time, and they want to talk about how law enforcement was doing black people like this, and you know, the FBI was doing this, they were listening, they were doing this, and you know, then we see that Target was locking up niggas big time back in the 80s. You know, Amy Klobuchar and, you know, Keith Ellison got big because they railroaded niggas. You know, then we got to look at, you know, RT Ryback, or even like what Betsy, I think, is it Betsy Hodges, what she's doing right now? No, Mayor Shells Belton. She's coming out with some posts, some tweets. It's like, lady, listen, where were you at when the people needed you? Because as long as you were getting paid, it was all right to look the other way. That's what I don't understand, right? In all of this, I don't get it, you know, and that's what it hurt me last night, is seeing the posts that I seen that were coming from Brooklyn Center, and it's like, why aren't the people in uproar? You know what I'm saying? Why aren't the people, like, y'all getting mad? Like, what is it going to take for individuals to get up? Do we need a George Floyd moment again? Do we honestly need a moment like that to get us back in effect? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand that. Oh, I didn't want to go there. How would I do? Oh, shit. All right. So I'll go to this post.
Because it's going to be completely different. After 3 years of they're trying to rewrite. Yeah, they're taking out a lot of pieces to where it is now going to be a completely different resolution that was passed in 2021.
So
it really hasn't passed.
because
it's going to be completely different.
after 3 years of this work, and believe you, there was, and I don't know if I can legally say the names, so I'll get in trouble, but certain council members and certain city staff that were being strategically incapacitated.
I'm going to say the council member's name. It's Dan Jerzak and Lori Ann Moore.
And I was talking about
they're
Dan,
the white member, the white council members.
I was talking about
Well,
Dan.
speaking of him,
And
this is our lovely council member that doesn't support the resolution. Why don't you support the resolution? Why don't
Any comment?
Why don't you support the implementation? Just ask them.
Did you just push her?
Yeah, did you just push her? I got that on tape.
That's what I don't understand. So he did. Alyssa Washington said that. So today at the city council meeting in Brooklyn Center, I was assaulted by city council member Dan Jerzak while standing in solidarity with Amy Dimmick and Katie Wright. The audacity for him to think that he can put his hands on me. Please see the video below, and I have metal in my spine from a spinal fusion, and you can clearly see him touching me, causing me to jolt forward. We urgently need to call for his resignation and ensure legal action is taken. A professional working for the city should not behave this way, especially when there was plenty of room to walk around us. And I agree. So we all know, if people don't remember, I was out in Brooklyn Center. I was a part of a committee out there that was doing a petition to change their city. What do you want to? So we were trying to do a strong mayor.
Then having those 4 non-voting members, that gives us an opportunity to do so.
Mayor,
why are you yelling?
I'm being recorded. Is it okay for them to continue to record me?
No, Lord.
Records all the time.
I don't like that.
You know, the heckling and the snapping
No,
and
I didn't hear anything, Councilmember.
Well, you are not. You're looking forward.
You don't have to look at them either. Just this.
I understand that, Mayor, but there are things happening that you may not be aware of that have continued throughout that you have not addressed. So
I didn't see anything.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Mayor.
So those are the points that I feel fairly strongly about. The scope and the membership, I think there's good reason to accept what the staff has put forward and to consider the idea that having non-voting members that are experts or business owners is a good addition to have on a public safety advisory body, because they're stakeholders, even if they aren't residents. Go ahead, Councilmember Jerzak.
Before I respond, I would like to respect Robert's rules and have my colleague, if she'd like to speak, and then I'll respond to her in a couple of minutes.
Go right ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris Anderson.
I don't think we're that far apart. I really don't. I just, one thing that I don't know, because I haven't had any reaction, but I have had a couple meetings with Dr. Edwards, if I may ask Dr. Edwards a question.
So yeah, people got to go out and start paying attention. That's what I will say, right? Is folks need to pay attention to what is going on around them, right? Because it starts with us. It starts with us, man. It starts with us. 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 It starts with the people. I will say that, man. And I'm going to continue saying that, right? That it starts with, it starts with us. So I'm going to get into, next, I want to get into government shutdown, right? A lot of people don't understand that we could be facing a government shutdown. And, you know, what all does that entail when it comes to what everything's shutting down, right? We see all this waste and fraud, but is anybody really having conversations about how we're going to be could potentially be in a shutdown. And to me, that is something that is serious. And we need to have conversations about, the shutdown coming up. Because what does that all entail? What does that affect? When we're talking about a government shutdown, what does that affect? What does that entail? What is that? What services, what, things are going to be closed, what's going to be open? Do people have to go to work and they're not going to get paid? Because we know we can't live like that. Some people live paycheck to paycheck. So I want to get into government shutdown, showdown, because you not only have one on the federal level, but you potentially have one on the local level as well. When it comes to our state legislator, because if they can't agree on a budget, what do you think is going to happen? So nothing's going to actually get done. We're not going to pass a budget. We're not going to, things will be shut down because they can't agree on something. So with that being said, I want to get into lawmakers discuss the risk of government shutdown.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're staying on Capitol Hill because we want to get the Democratic side of this story here. And their minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries from New York, with this statement saying House Republicans want to gut Medicaid. He says, hard pass. The partisan House Republican funding bill recklessly cuts health care, nutritional assistance, and $23 billion in veterans benefits. He says equally troublesome, the legislation does nothing to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, while exposing the American people to further pain throughout this fiscal year. We are voting no, meaning all of the House Democratic caucus. That is the message coming from their leadership to vote no. We heard from them on camera today, led by Jeffries. Let's just watch. This is brief.
In the presidency, instead of using their majority to make life better for the American people, Donald Trump and House Republicans are crashing the economy and hurting hard-working American families. And now extreme MAGA Republicans want to shut down the government. The House Republican so-called spending bill does nothing to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Quite the opposite. The Republican bill dramatically cuts health care, nutritional assistance for children and families, and veterans benefits. It is not something we could ever support. House Democrats will not be complicit in the Republican effort to hurt the American people. Catherine Clark.
Today, we are setting up the stranger for anything he wants.
Yo, excuse me, sir. Yo, if you had the chance to buy anything you've always wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. We have a new bill, but it's the same betrayal of the American people. This is all part of the same scheme, the same crime spree that we are seeing that steals deserving taxpayer dollars, and all to give a tax cut to the very wealthiest people in this country. In this bill, there are also very specific harm will be done. 32,000 families that will lose affordable housing projects that will be halted. Our veterans who rely on the PACT Act funding because they were exposed to toxins while serving our country. That is defunded in this bill. Another shocking, as they're rolling back research across the country, in this bill, Alzheimer's research is zeroed out. 7 million people in this country are diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and the impact on our economy and families like mine, I lost my mom to that disease, is devastating. So why do this? It's all part of the same plot. To give Elon and the billionaire class a tax break at the expense of what families in this country need. We are not going to let them take their health care, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, in order to betray American families at home. Pete Aguilar.
House Democrats want to support a bill that protects Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. We want to protect our communities. We want to ensure health care for veterans. This bill doesn't do that. It takes away veterans' health care. It takes away critical research funding. Those are the things that House Republicans are willing to do just to give Elon Musk and Donald Trump's friends continued tax breaks. That's unacceptable to House Democrats. We want to support a bipartisan piece of legislation. If House Republicans want to support real legislation that helps American families, and they want to do it in a bipartisan way, all they have to do is call Leader Jeffries and work with House Democrats. But they have so far been unable and unwilling to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Leader,
thank you.
All right, there you have it. That is the message coming from House Democratic leadership on the government funding fight right now. And Speaker Johnson is responding to them there on social media saying this. House Democrats said they'd enthusiastically support a bill that protects Social Security, Medicare, Veterans Health, and Medicaid. He says that's exactly what the CR does. He asks rhetorically, so why do Democrats actually oppose it? He answers rhetorically, because they want to shut down the government to stop President Trump here. Out live there to the U.S. Capitol, and included in this funding bill is a drastic cut to Washington, D.C.'s fiscal year budget to the tune of almost $1 billion, while D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and other prominent Democrats who represent areas near the district, including the delegate there, Eleanor Holmes Norton, outside the Capitol today railing against this funding bill. Let's watch.
Beautiful day in our beautiful city, and our priority is to keep Washington, D.C. a beautiful world-class city. But unfortunately, we are here today to talk about potentially devastating and really highly unusual situation that we faced with the draft budget CR that would immediately have the effect of cutting $1 billion out of our local budget. So let me tell you what's happening. In the most recent continuing resolution language, it ignores our already congressionally approved fiscal 2025 budget. Instead, it would peg us at FY24 levels, the levels that federal agencies are, because they do not have an approved FY25 budget. But we are not a federal agency. We are a city, county, state all at once. And we provide direct services to the people of the District of Columbia, visitors to the District of Columbia, businesses in the District of Columbia, diplomats and visiting heads of state, and everyone who works here in the Congress. Our budget was balanced and approved. And if we go back to fiscal 2024 levels, we would be forced to reduce spending by $1.1 billion in only 6 months. But here is why we're here today, because Congress can fix this. They can fix this $1.1 billion problem that we have brought to their attention in the draft CR. The Congress can add the language back to the continuing resolution, the same language that's been there for the past 2 continuing resolutions that authorize us to spend our locally generated revenue according to our own approved budget and timeline. And I want to emphasize the local part of that statement. The District of Columbia raises and spends its own money, just like every other state. So remember that the budget we're talking about, this budget, the approved FY25 budget, was introduced by me and approved by this council. It focuses on 3 main areas: public safety, public education, and economic growth. Disrupting those investments won't be good for DC or our country. And this is not just about us. Certainly, we are concerned about the 700,000 taxpaying Americans that call DC home, but it's also about our nation's capital. And so I want Americans across the country to know that we are proud of our city. We are a growing city. In fact, if we were a state last year, we would have been the fastest improving state in the nation. We balanced our budgets. We have 28 balanced budgets. We have increased visitation. Americans from around the country and people from around the world broke a record last year, and we have driven down violent crime to the lowest levels in 30 years. And actually, this is a good time to visit the district because soon we'll have beautiful cherry blossoms as well. This action, let me be clear, if the Congress goes through with this action, it will work against a priority that President Trump and I share, and that is to make Washington, D.C. the best, most beautiful city in the world. And we want to work with our partners in the federal government to ensure that D.C. always represents the strength and prosperity of this country. I'm pleased now to introduce our Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who always works with her colleagues to make sure that any anomalies are addressed. Congresswoman Norton.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. House Republicans released the text of a continuing resolution this weekend that commits nothing less than fiscal sabotage of D.C. It is the latest blow in an escalating war on D.C. residents and the limited home rule D.C. currently possesses. The CR omitted a long-standing provision that would allow D.C. to continue spending its local fiscal year 2025 budget and instead treats D.C. as a federal agency, forcing the district to revert to spending at fiscal year 2024 levels for the remainder of the year. If enacted, the CR would result in a projected cuts of $1 billion, which would force dramatic reductions in essential services the city provides, including DC police, EMS, and schools. It is contrary to the state Republican goal of improving public safety, law, and order in the nation's capital, and would in fact have the opposite effect. DC has not been treated as a federal agency for funding purposes in more than 20 years.
Okay, the D.C. delegate there, Eleanor Holmes Norton, speaking after Mayor Muriel Bowser of D.C., speaking out in opposition against the GOP government funding.
So as you can see, we're probably going to come to a government shutdown. One thing that I did want to get into before I get up out of here is the fact that you have in Minnesota, they have to pay back so much, 113 million DHS does. And I want to play that real quick. And also I want to get into what DC is doing to Black Lives Matter. What was spray painted out in the street. You know, you had that big yellow Black Lives Matter thing out there. So they're getting rid of that.
Thanks for joining us. $113 million. That's how much the state of Minnesota is just starting to pay back to the federal government because of a massive billing error. And now it's playing a large part in how lawmakers craft the state's new budget. Lou Ragoose is following our top story tonight. Lou?
Julie, this billing error had been going on for nearly a decade before anyone at DHS caught it. Now the Department of Human Services has to pay back $113 million, and the state needs to account for additional costs moving forward. An incorrect billing code input by the Department of Human Services nearly a decade ago has resulted in DHS improperly billing the federal government $113 million for reimbursements,
which largely pays for substance use disorder services.
The money went to 7 tribal substance abuse facilities, which DHS admits they had improperly classified in their system. Temporary DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi, in a statement saying in part, "I am proud of our Behavioral Health Administration staff at DHS for detecting a decade-old coding error in our billing system and taking immediate action to diagnose the problem, then fix it." State officials say there was no fraud, no money stolen.
I think it's important to note that the amounts paid to the providers were not incorrect. It's just the split between the state and the federal government.
This is a huge mistake.
But GOP leaders say it's just another example of mismanagement within the embattled department. Commissioner Jody Harpstead resigned earlier this year as DHS faces scrutiny amid criminal investigations for fraud occurring within its programs that rely on Medicaid reimbursements dispersed to providers by DHS. Senator Jordan Rasmussen, the Republican chair of the Senate Human Services Committee, says DHS's mistake will total $150 million, accounting for future payments to the facilities. And he says it could have been avoided.
If the Department of Human Services would have submitted the proper waivers to the federal government, all of these costs could have been covered using federal dollars, avoiding putting the burden on state taxpayers.
Rasmussen and DHS officials agree that they should be able to get those facilities under the waiver sometime in the future to make them eligible for federal funds. The unexpected cost to pay back the federal government leads to a spending increase of 62% in the state's behavioral health fund in this next fiscal year.
There's nothing they can do to say, oh, sorry, federal government, here's the waiver after the fact, so we don't have to pay that back?
No, those were due in 2019, so we're past that point already. It's just paying back now, and this money has to come out of the state's general fund and move forward from here.
Damn, so 150 million, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I mean, I shouldn't say Minneapolis. Minnesota's got to pay back. God damn. It's always something in Minnesota. That doesn't matter if it comes down to waste. Doesn't matter if it comes down to fraud. You're just seeing that Minnesota is just a dirty ass state. This is what I want to. I think I'm wheezing. This is the video of BLM Square being taken down in front of in DC. Kind of crazy. But I mean, I'm not mad. It is what it is, to be honest. I don't know why motherfuckers would get mad. You already know what it is. Cut the check. I don't care about no street. People were driving over it. Damn. They getting rid of it like a motherfucker. Crazy. Damn. Crazy, crazy, crazy. That's wild. Wow. That's wild. The removal of the BLM mural near the White House is more than just paint being stripped from the street. It's a symbol of how quickly someone to erase the fight for justice and the progress this far. That's crazy. Man, y'all better open up, because it's gonna get bad. Let's see what's trending. So Massey is, because he's not gonna vote for the budget. He'll vote against it. But I think he's a Republican, so that makes sense that he's voting against. Well, it doesn't actually make sense because they're the ones that brought it, but it makes sense of like that he is gonna vote no on something that he doesn't agree with. I definitely am okay with that. Oh man, what y'all been doing today? Huh? Let's see if I can get to one part, because I thought it was crazy of listening to Keith Ellison was actually in. And I want to say this. I seen it, they had at Jordan, Minnesota. I know a lot of people are discussing that. And, honestly, that's good.
Celebrito 55 is shot.
But here's one that
also said
is Robert did this.
Before we get started, I'm going to say a trigger warning. There's a lot of abuse of children.
Right.
And details and that types of things in this video. It was alleged, and some of it has been confirmed, and this also involves Freedom of Information Act request, FBI wiretaps, and there was even a song written about it. So, Satanists in high places exposed in Minnesota. 200 people attended a meeting in St. Paul, Minnesota on February 2nd, titled The Franklin Cover-Up, Child Abuse, Satanism, and Murder in Nebraska. The forum was organized by the Schiller Institute and addressed by Institute representatives Philip Valentini, Nebraska Attorney John DeCamp, Louis DuPont Smith, an heir to the DuPont chemical fortune and associate of Lyndon LaRouche, and Jack Graham, County Attorney of Crow Wing, Minnesota. In his opening remarks, which we publish here, slightly abridged, Valentini cites a special report that he authored for a New Federalist newspaper, Skip Humphrey and the Criminal Abuse of Power. Portions of that report were published in the EIR October 29th, 1993. An updated second edition has since been released and is available from the New Federalist, P.O. Box 889, Leesburg, Virginia 22075. And this was originally published in EIR Volume 21, Number 10, March 4th, 1994. Let me explain why we're in Minnesota. In 1992, Louis DuPont Smith and his wife, Andrea, were the targets of a kidnapping conspiracy. This conspiracy was financed by Smith's father, working with private groups that were longtime political enemies of Lyndon LaRouche and were determined to destroy his political movement. The Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith and the Cult Awareness Network. Now, the Anti-Defamation League has a reputation as some sort of civil rights organization, but since its office was raided by San Francisco police on April 8, 1993, they came up with massive evidence that this ADL runs a national spy network with intimate relations with various law enforcement agencies. In fact, they have functioned as a private arm of the FBI when the FBI was prohibited from carrying out its COINTELPRO dirty tricks, spying, keeping enemies lists on private citizens. These groups were planning a kidnapping. As well, Lewis will explain, one of the former deputy sheriffs in Virginia whom they tried to recruit to this conspiracy was an honest cop who went on to the FBI and told him about it. They put the FBI on spot. They had informed Lewis and Andrea about this, and they put wiretaps on the phones of the conspirators. They put recording devices on one agent they had in the ranks of the conspirators, and the group was arrested before they could carry out the kidnapping. Humphrey targets LaRouche and Associates. During the trial, which was September, October, and November of 1992, they released wiretaps, transcripts, and tapes. Among the tapes was a lengthy discussion between Rick Munson, an investigator in Minnesota Attorney General Hubert Skip Humphrey's office, and Don Moore, a disgraced cop from Virginia, the ringleader of this kidnapping conspiracy. Although on the wiretap transcript that we have, they didn't discuss kidnapping directly, it is clear that they were discussing a national political conspiracy, launching a coordinated political attack against LaRouche movement through the country, with Humphrey's office collaborating intimately with Don Moore and the Anti-Defamation League and the Cult Awareness Network in launching a political attack, including indictments on false charges and planting negative stories in the press. The closing comments of Rick Munson to Don Moore was, "We really want these guys. We really want to get these guys." This would fit in perfectly with the kidnapping plans to have some big blow-up, negative stories in the press. Arrest of LaRouche supporters. Cover for the kidnapping was planned to occur around September 1992. Now, this is something new with Skip Humphrey. Is it? It is not. As far as the political prostitution for his office goes, using his office to destroy his political opponents, political enemies, or the enemies of the people who control or finance him. I have here a letter dated 26 August 1986 signed by Hubert H. Humphrey III on stationery of the Attorney General of Minnesota. A letter sent out to thousands of members of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, the congressional district, which was then represented by Bill Frenzel. The letter says, "Dear DFLer, I enthusiastically support Ray Stock in his bid to upset Bill Frenzel. Ray has a big task ahead of him and needs your help. First, he must defeat a LaRouche disciple in the primary and then take on the entrenched Bill Frenzel. Ray needs you to vote in the primary."
There's a lot in Minnesota that I honestly believe that people need to go back and look and see, like, hey, we had issues. We had serious issues that need to be looked at, that need to be dealt with. And in my eyes, until we do that, I believe that Minnesota will continually be the fucked up state and that it is. I do know that because I will tell you this, that how do we live in a state where we see all this waste and fraud, but we're more worried about politics? You know, that, and maybe because people don't understand, you know what I'm saying? So, because I thought about this, right, when I was doing the episode today, is that, you know, you're seeing that Minneapolis Police Department is scrubbing records. You know what I'm saying? That government fraud is draining money. Congress is on the verge of shutting down again. So why isn't it that people see that the system is broken? And the only way to fix it is we keep the pressure on. That's the only way to fix it. So here's what you got to do. Subscribe, share, and hit us up in the comments. We want to hear from you. What's the biggest issue here? What's the solution? You're rocking with the Urban Conservative, where we keep it gritty, unfiltered, and real. Till next time, win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, and wish me well. And here is a new song from Alex, Emotionalist. With that being said, same time tomorrow, same time, same place.
I seen some traumas in my life that left me scarred today, and I cut off so many loose ends along the way. Can't live my life based off decisions that my partners made, and I'm still young, so please forgive me if I make mistakes. Show some emotion, nigga, that's what she told me. Hey, think of me motionless, but fuck it, cause she barely knows me. Think of me motionless, cause niggas, they feel like they made me. Feeling emotionless, that just ain't like me, mama. You know them laws can't hold me down, they wanna on-site me, mama. Ain't afraid to die, just my crime, they think I'm from Wakanda. Yeah, they know my dad must be them purple flowers. They tried to steal it, but I know this world is ours. I judge myself, don't judge me. Trust myself, don't trust me. Fuck them if it's fuck me. Eventually I realize they can't touch me. And I learned to see the pretty side when shit get ugly. Southern blue, blur review.